everyone, my name's Katie Schuler and today I'm going to tell you about Xbuilder. So Xbuilder is a framework for doing reproducible research with Docker containers. If you're not familiar, Docker is a service that lets you package up your software and applications into what they call containers that are super easy to work with and easy to share with other people. So because of this, Docker containers are a really natural solution to a lot of the issues researchers encounter, especially in cognitive science when we're trying to run analyses or develop web experiments and other things we like to do. And Docker containers allow you to not only share your code, but also the application you use to develop the code and run it. So despite being super useful for reproducible research, Docker containers haven't been as widely adopted as I expected them to be in a lot of different fields. So I think the reason might be because they can be a little bit tricky when you're first learning how to use them, but once you get the hang of it, it's actually really simple and really easy to share. So I created Xbuilder to make it easy for other researchers to learn how to use Docker containers to conduct their research. And I designed Xbuilder to be a framework. So it's not really a software, it's more like a structure or a starting point to help you learn to work on research in Docker containers. So I thought I will show you Xbuilder really quickly today by following the quick start instructions to give you a sense of what it does. So there's only one prerequisite for using Xbuilder, and that's Docker Desktop. So I would pause the video, install Docker Desktop, and then play the video again when you're all ready. So once Docker Desktop is installed, you can create a new Xbuilder project by just cloning Xbuilder's repository. So I'm just going to do that here. Now I cloned this and I pressed enter too quickly, so I named it name of your project. But just to show you what it would look like, you can actually change the name of your project to whatever you want your project to be called. So we'll call this Katie Demo. Okay. So I'm just cloning the framework again, and I've named the folder Katie Demo. So now I should be able to cd into Katie Demo. I can, and then I can type ls so I can see all the files that Xbuilder comes with. So there's all sorts of cool stuff in there. It comes with an analysis folder, a database folder, an experiments folder, a pre-registrations folder, a couple of Docker Compose files, a README file, and a license. And that's it. So that's all you need to really get started using Docker containers for your research. So before we turn the containers on, it's called spinning them up, we need to do a couple of configuration steps. So we need to first copy the sample environment file to the .env file. And that's because environment files contain things like database passwords, and we shouldn't commit them to repositories. So you just make the copy, and then you don't have to do anything more, but I'm going to show you how you could use Nano to go in and edit this file. And we're just going to change one thing. Don't worry about all these other things for now. You're just getting started. We're going to change the name of our project, and I'm going to call this Katie Demo 2. So this variable is used to name all your Docker containers, and this is really important because Docker needs to keep all the various projects you have separate, and this will help it to do that. It will help it name all of the containers after your project. Okay, so we're all done with that, and we're ready to start our containers. So to start the containers, we do Docker Compose upd build, press enter, and then the containers will get built. So you can see it's named the containers what I called it in the environment file, Katie Demo. And it's creating a bunch of containers for us. Really great. So there's an RStudio and Jupyter container. Those are for doing analyses. You probably just need one. Postgres, PHP, and Nginx. All three of those are for developing web experiments. Nginx is a web server. PHP is some code, backend code. And Postgres is a database. So now that these containers are running, we can visit the containers. So our web server container will be available at localhost 8080. The same thing will be available to you. Xbuilder comes with a little landing page. You can customize this in the Xbuilder config Xbuilder JSON file. So experiment 1 is actually what Xbuilder comes with to show you how it would work. It's a JS psych experiment. So I'm just going to pick these variables. This is just so these will get written to your database. and you press submit, and it's going to take you to run that experiment. Okay, so the experiment goes as this. This is the tutorial for JS Psych. Okay, great. So that's our web experiment. We can develop our web experiment inside the container, and then if we're working with someone else, we can share our code and the container with them, so they can also run Docker Compose upd build on their machine and develop their code and work inside the container as well. So we also have a Jupyter container that we just started. You can use password that's set in the environment file. So we'll log in and we'll have access to this Jupyter container. So if you like to analyze in Jupyter notebooks, you can do your analysis right in here. Whatever you do in this work folder that's about to load will also be saved in this analysis folder for you. So it takes a minute the first time it gets started, but once it's up, it'll be pretty fast. So you have to enter this work folder. The work folder, again, is mapped to the analyses folder, and anything you do in here will save on your local machine, and then you can commit it to your repository. So Xbuilder comes with a sample. You can delete these if you don't need them anymore. It's really just to show you how it would work. So if you prefer analyzing in RStudio, you also have an RStudio container. The login is RStudio, the password is password. So you'll log in, and just as in the Jupyter notebook, the analysis folder is mapped into the work folder. So anything you do in the work folder inside the container will be available on your local machine in the analysis folder. So I included a sample R Markdown file, so you can see how this would be really helpful. Let's say you're writing a paper with someone and you like to write an R Markdown. You can actually do it inside this instance of RStudio, this container, and then your colleague can clone your repository, start the container, and do the work inside the container. So you're both working on exactly the same version of RStudio. You'll have all the same packages, and it'll make things super easy. Okay, so that's all I wanted to show you for getting started with Xbuilder. When you're all done, you can stop the container with Docker Compose down. This will stop all the containers, and you'll be all set. So you can then move on and read the next steps. There's all sorts of cool stuff you can do with Xbuilder. I hope some of you will find this helpful. If you have any questions, you can ask questions on our discussion board. You can go to the help section, support down here, and there's a link to the discussion board. Happy to answer any questions anyone has, and I hope at least some of you will find this useful.